Greetings, and welcome to Movie Recap Vault. In this session, we're presenting a 2022 crime drama movie, titled Restless. Thomas is a police lieutenant, with a French crime squad. After leaving his sister and daughter at a hospital, he speeds to his police station. He's worried about an internal affairs inspection team expected to investigate his group. His coworker calls him to tell him the inspection team is en route. His sister, Agathe, then calls him, wanting him to hurry back to the hospital funeral parlor, which is in the opposite direction. Their mother recently died, and her coffin is being kept open until he arrives to say his last goodbye. Suddenly, Thomas swerves to avoid a shaggy dog in the road, then hits something. He discovers that the man lying in the road is bleeding and dead, and thinks he killed him. Meanwhile, at the police station, Mark wants to know if Thomas has been contacted, and when he's arriving. Naomi doesn't know, and doesn't expect much of Thomas. Soon after, they're told that the internal affairs inspection team has arrived. Mark decides they need to protect the reputation of Thomas and the station. Mark breaks into Thomas's locker, and he and Naomi dispose of what is suspected to be illegal cash, by flushing it down toilets. Back on the road, Thomas wraps the body in a tarp, shoves it in his trunk, and covers its head with his jacket. Shortly after driving away, he's required to stop for a police inspection. Thomas is ordered to show his driver's license, and open his trunk. The police are suspicious, because Thomas can't provide his police identification or driver's license, both are in his jacket in the trunk, and he refuses to open the trunk. Thomas gets physical with the officers, when they try to open his trunk. He's sprayed for his efforts, and stops his resistance. Soon after, Thomas's identification is confirmed and he's allowed to leave. Mark sends him a text message informing him the inspection team is at the station, and for Thomas not to come there. Thomas speeds away toward the hospital's funeral parlor, instead. Meanwhile, at the station, Thomas's supervisor is being lectured by the leader of the inspection team. It's obvious that she thinks his officers are corrupt, and he thinks that she takes herself too seriously. They didn't find anything illegal in the officers' lockers, and they now want to search the officers' personal vehicles in the parking lot. Later, Thomas retrieves his jacket from his trunk and enters the hospital's funeral parlor. He's greeted by his daughter, Louise, and her latest remote-controlled toy soldier. Thomas's sister, Agathe, then arrives and scolds Thomas for being late. Thomas is given his mother's cross that she wanted to be buried with, and he goes to her coffin. After placing the cross in the coffin, he observes it being sealed. Noticing the ventilation duct cover and surveillance camera in the room, Thomas gets an idea of how to conceal the dead body in his trunk. He removes the cover to the ventilation duct outside of the building, and throws the remote-controlled soldier, tied to a rope, inside. He then pushes the dead body in the duct and replaces the cover. After buying some balloons that he pretends are for his daughter, Thomas returns to the coffin. Thomas gets permission to have 15 minutes alone with his mother. He obscures the camera's view with the balloons, and retrieves the dead body from the ventilation duct. After placing the dead man in the coffin with his mother, and resealing the lid, he hears the remote-controlled toy soldier firing its weapon again. Fortunately, the sound stops before the funeral parlor employee returns, and Thomas departs. The next day, Thomas and family say goodbye, and his mother is buried with the dead man. Later, Thomas cleans his car and then intentionally drives it into a police car. It provides him an alternate reason for the vehicle damage, and free repair. At the police station, Thomas thanks Mark for disposing of the cash from his locker. Thomas also notes that Mark is an equally dirty cop. Soon after, they're given details about their target. His name is Manuel Barceló, a convicted drug trafficker that's wanted by Interpol. Thomas instantly realizes that Barceló is the man he hit with his car, and is now in a coffin with his mother. Vauber desperately wants to arrest Barceló, so they can improve the station's image after the internal affairs team visit. Later, the group arrives at Barceló's base. They're unable to find him, but get clues that he's been there. They look for clues as to where he may now be located. Thomas sees the shaggy dog he almost ran over, and follows him. The dog leads him to the vehicle accident site. As Thomas checks the area, he's soon joined by a local police officer and the rest of his group. The police officer tells them that an anonymous caller reported a hit-and-run accident, where the driver put the body in his trunk and departed. The policeman plans to review camera footage to check for clues. That night, they review the video of the accident. Mark and the policeman believe it was a gray BMW like Thomas's car, but can't get a clear image of the license plate for identification. Thomas is very nervous. The next day, Thomas gets a call while at the indoor firearms range. The caller wants to report seeing Manuel Barceló. Thomas wants the caller to tell him where he was seen. However, the caller wants Thomas to tell him where he took Barceló after Thomas put him in his car. Thomas hangs up on the caller and returns to the firing range. The caller calls Thomas's cell phone from a masked number and Thomas doesn't answer. The caller then calls Naomi's cell phone and asks her to tell Thomas to answer his phone. Thomas then answers his phone and the caller tells him he knows Thomas killed Barceló. Thomas tells him he's mistaken and to stop calling. The caller threatens to tell the police where Thomas buried Barceló. Thomas wants to think it over, and hangs up. Suddenly, a dark-colored SUV stops in front of Thomas and knocks him over. The SUV slowly advances as Thomas tries to squirm out from under it. Thomas gets free and the SUV departs. Mark then appears and wants to know if Thomas's mother is buried in the cemetery by the sea. He tells Thomas that the last cell phone pings from Barceló's phone were in the area of that cemetery. However, they're unable to triangulate the exact location. Thomas thinks that is tragic. Thomas then gets another call from the mystery caller. He claims to have seen Thomas bury Barceló. Thomas tells him he couldn't have and hangs up. Later, Thomas calls to check if there's a record of all people that were in the garage that morning, and is told yes. He tells the record keeper that he'll come to get the list. Suddenly, Thomas gets another call from an unknown number. Before he can answer, a man approaches and slaps Thomas out of his chair. The man is Captain Morelli, the head of the narcotics group, and claims he made a mistake, and thought Thomas was a different person. Vauber insists that they don't say anything about what happened. Vauber claims Morelli blocked the internal affairs investigation, and they owe him a favor. Thomas confronts Morelli in the restroom. Morelli wants Thomas to bring him Barceló that night. They fight, Morelli wins, and Thomas agrees to bring Barceló to him. That night Thomas goes to his mother's grave. He apologizes to his mother for what he's about to do, then breaks into the coffin. After he gets Barceló out of the grave, he begins checking his pockets. Thomas takes Barceló's cell phone, and after turning him over, he discovers 2 bullet holes in Barceló's back. Thomas is happy to know that he didn't actually kill Barceló. Thomas then drives to Barceló's base camp to search again for clues about what happened. After finding a phone charger, he's surprised again by the shaggy dog. Thomas then sees an envelope with a picture and business card that Thomas pockets. As he gets ready to leave, Barceló's phone is called. Thomas remains silent as the caller complains that he thought Morelli killed him, since he hadn't answered his phone. The caller then realizes that it's probably not Barceló who answered the phone, and he hangs up. Later, Thomas calls Naomi and learns the phone number that called Barceló's phone belongs to Michael Berge. Berge has a police record for fraud and computer hacking. Thomas convinces Naomi to illegally track Berge's phone and to tell Thomas where he's located, and to send him a picture of Berge. Mark suddenly arrives and offers to help Naomi process tickets. He sees a traffic camera image of Thomas, and Thomas's car has damage to the front, in the picture. It's that same date as the hit-and-run accident. Later, Thomas finds Berge in a laundromat. He threatens to torture Berge in a hot dryer, and Berge tells him everything. Morelli is looking for a key to a vault where Barceló stashed drug money. Morelli and Barceló diverted police-confiscated drugs intended to be destroyed, into their own containers. They diluted the solution in alcohol, and made huge profits selling it to private clubs. Berge double-crossed Morelli and sold the business to the Albanians. The key to the secret vault is inside Barceló. Thomas returns to his mother's grave and pulls Barceló's body out again. He retrieves the key. Suddenly, Mark shines a flashlight on Thomas and holds him at gunpoint. Thomas denies having killed Barceló. Mark wants to know about the picture of Thomas's damaged car on the ticket. He puts handcuffs on Thomas until he learns the truth. They drive away as Thomas tells Mark about Morelli blackmailing him, and everything else. Mark gives Thomas the handcuff key after he understands what happened. Morelli calls and Thomas gets out of the car to talk with him. Morelli drops a huge container on the car that Mark is sitting in. Morelli wants Thomas to bring him Barceló in the morning. Thomas refuses, and claims he'll turn himself in and tell the authorities everything. Morelli lets Thomas know he's at his home with Thomas's sister and daughter. Thomas is scared for their safety and agrees to bring Barceló to Morelli. Thomas rushes home to discover all are fine. Later, Morelli sends him a text with the GPS coordinates of where to bring the body. Thomas sends Agathe and Louise on an unplanned weekend trip out of town. He then gathers ammunition and the explosive charges he'd recently seen at the armory. Thomas stops and plants an explosive charge on Barceló's body. Mirelli tells Thomas to stop his car at a distance, and bring Barcelo's body to him. Thomas puts Barcelo's body in the back of Mirelli's vehicle. Mirelli takes Thomas's handgun from him, and checks him for additional metallic objects. Mirelli admits he shot Barcelo when Thomas asked. Thomas starts walking away, and activates the 2-minute delay on the explosive charge. Mirelli calls Thomas and shoots him with Thomas's handgun. However, Thomas loaded blanks in his handgun. Mirelli threatens to shoot him with a shotgun, but Thomas tells him that he's made arrangements and if he dies, an email will be sent tomorrow notifying the authorities of everything. Mirelli decides not to shoot Thomas, and Thomas tries to leave before the explosive detonates. Mirelli returns Thomas's handgun after emptying the blanks, then drives a short distance before the explosive detonates. Surprisingly, Mirelli doesn't die. Thomas rushes to load his handgun, but only loads one round before Mirelli's vehicle crashes into him. Thomas jumps out of his car and Mirelli comes after Thomas in a rage and they fight. Eventually, Thomas is able to cycle the live round and fire into Mirelli's head. They both fall into the water. Later, Thomas is shown handcuffed while he tells his daughter over the phone that he loves her. Thomas is taken to the police station and interrogated. Vauber's boss tells him to bury all of the bad information so they don't suffer a scandal as well. Later, Naomi visits Thomas at the seashore. She tells him she knows he quit the police force and she thinks it was great that he gave his severance pay to Mark's wife. Naomi found the key to the vault inside Mark's car, and gives it to Thomas so the internal affairs group doesn't get it. Later, Thomas arrives at the secret vault where he thinks the drug money is hidden. He has the key to get him through the door, but now needs the code. He guesses the code is shown on the picture he found at Barcelo's base, and he's correct. When the lights come on inside the vault, Thomas is amazed at the huge stacks of cash. The end. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the movie. Thanks.